How's it going, everybody? This is Aaron the Pedantic, and I am going to run through the rest of the Spells and Magic book for Swords and Wizardry. And it's been a long time coming to finish this up, but it's been busy. It's been super busy. So, without any further ado, let's get into it. I last left off on Fly and made some comments on that. So let's go to the next one that I found to be interesting, and that is Geese. So 6th level magic user spell, 30 range, 30 foot range. So one of the things that I think is really interesting about this, I mean, so they do get the chance to do a saving throw. So obviously that means your low level dummies are going to succumb to that a lot more readily than higher level things. But there's no duration is just until they finish the task. There's no specificity about like what kind of task it has to be. It could be basically anything. And if they refuse to do it, it's gonna affect them. They're gonna start feeling weak. And if they refuse to do it for long enough, then they're gonna die. It doesn't say when or any of that kind of stuff. Again, this is something I really love about Swords and Wizardry, is just how much it's just like, it's up to you, dog. It's up to you. Now, that may be something that really upsets some players, but for me, as a perpetual DM, and happily so, I got the power and I like it. Use it responsibly, though. You want to use it responsibly. I always love a 4th level spell that lasts until it's dispelled. So we have Hallucinatory Forest. So they can change the appearance of the land. And the maximum extent is that it cannot be more than 30 by 30 foot squares being per equal to the level of the caster. So at level 4, by that point, you'll be doing 120 by 120 foot squares. Square area is how much you can do. But druids and magical creatures are not going to be fooled by the illusion. So I like that because it's something that you can really do to throw people off, to hide something maybe. I love this kind of stuff that, this is something that the players would get access to that really lends to deeper play than just the dungeon delve, which I love. The dungeon delve. The dungeon delve is beautiful, guys, but this is some deeper world stuff, and I really dig that. So what about hallucinatory terrain? Well, that one is going to last until it's touched. So they can actually, people with the forest, they can, actually walk through it and stuff like that. With the terrain, once it's touched, it's gone. But there's a lot less of a lot less here to pull you down. It doesn't say anything about, what is it going to be the same as this? If so, there probably should have been a reference as far as how much you can affect at a time. So I don't know. It's the ball's in your court, dog. Let me see if we got any comments. JP says, howdy. How's it going, man? Good to see you. Malaki says, yeah, I'll listen to Aaron while I work. That's always a great thing to do. I loved jobs that I could work, that I could listen to stuff, especially when there was really good stuff to listen to. Dark Knight says, howdy. Good to see you, man. Okay, so if y'all have any questions about any spells in particular or anything like that, then let me know and I'll go back to them. I don't really mind. So Haste, 3rd level magic user spell. So I believe in this version you get that at 5th level. I could be wrong. I think that's about it. Quite a good range on it. Duration is 30 minutes. So I mean, if we're talking about battle time, it's 30 rounds in Swords and Wizardry. And if we're talking about exploration time, then that's, 10 dungeon turns. 3 dungeon turns. What's wrong with my brain? So in an area with a radius of 60 feet around the point where the spell's target, as many as 24 creatures become able to move and attack at double normal speed. Woo! Now you can start to see why this spell is so well loved. It's pretty serious. It is serious business. You can seriously change the course of a battle just by having things be able to attack twice or double the amount, and the movement speed. Don't forget about the movement speed. That is it's big. There's nothing here about any kind of bad effects. I know that there are versions of Haste that will aid you every time that you cast it or every time that you receive it. This doesn't do that. I like the ones that aid you, like a year maybe. Okay, so heat metal is a lot more intense than I'm used to. Personally, I've never really used heat metal that often. The only time I ever used it was in 5th edition, because usually whenever I play the old school stuff, I don't have druids. But in this, basically you have a round progression thing. So they can affect 20 pounds of metal per level of the caster. So you're probably, by the time you get this, you're going to be 2nd level. So you're going to be able to affect 40 pounds, and depending on, you're not quite going to be able to affect like full plate. Arguably, some people are going to argue about that, but chainmail, anything less than that, yeah, you can definitely handle it. So, it says the magic, as a rule of thumb, this magic affects the armor and weapons of one opponent per caster level when used as a general attack. Although the spell definitely is not limited to general combat. Does not get a saving throw against being heated, but any sort of magical fire resistance prevents damage from the heat itself. So the thing about this is that if they're using this while they're in combat, it gives them, 7 rounds where things start getting worse as they go along. But here's the deal about that. It takes a little bit of time to get armor off. So if you do this to their armor, then they're just going to have to suffer for the most part. So basically, round 1, it's hot, but not yet dangerous. Round 2, 1d4 points of damage. If hands are what remain in contact, the blistering makes them unusable for 1 day thereafter. That is pretty frustrating. I feel like if you use this on the player characters, they're not going to be happy campers. Round 3 to 5, more damage, 1d4 plus 1 points of damage per round. If hands remain in contact, their skin is so badly scorched they cannot be used for 1d3 weeks. If the head is in contact, the victim falls unconscious for 1d8 turns. So here's where this gets kind of interesting. Whenever you're thinking about if the hands remain in contact, well, let's say that you heat their weapon. What if they're wearing gauntlets? What if they're wearing, if they're wearing gauntlets, they probably have some kind of like gloves beneath them, some kind of leather bindings or things like that. And then maybe there's some argument there that it's not going to get quite as hot quite as quickly as if you were just holding it barehanded. We're not going into those kinds of gradients though. So just be prepared, I guess, that those questions may come up. I have never worn a gauntlet and then held something that was like just scalding hot before. So I don't know. I'm pretty sure that the heat would transfer. And, so the hot thing would make the other thing hot, which would make my hand hot. But I don't know. It's something that I think would be an interesting thing to think about. Round 6, so they get so badly scorched that they cannot use it for 1d3 weeks. That's the hands. If the head is in contact, they fall unconscious for 1d8 turns. So if you did this on their helmet, the thing about the helmet is you can take a helmet off really quickly, which is almost kind of a waste of a spell, depending on how you look at it. But if you're going to do this to their entire set of armor, then that's just one thing that they have to do. Okay, so then it just concludes with some more damage, and then it starts getting cool. cools down. Ooh, we got comments. Alex says, wow, that's a lot of hyped up fighters. Yes, it is. You could encircle someone almost instantly. Yes, you could. JP says it doesn't do a ton of damage in 5, but I'm pretty sure it straight up boils people in Swords and Wizardry. Basically, yeah. I mean, that's basically how you're looking at it. Alex says you can make someone drop their weapon for a few turns. Could be useful. That is true. But what warrior is worth their salt does not have a backup weapon? I mean, come on. It will mess with you. Dark Knight, he has to bring up Dark Albion because this is who he is. He says, in Dark Albion, the Spear of Mithras has haste, and if you use it, ages you by 5 years. In a system that drains stats every year after your PC's 50th year, it's pretty dangerous. That's true. JP says you can probably have someone with a knife cut your straps relatively quickly. Expensive repair job afterwards. That's a good point. JP also says gauntlets usually have a leather mitten underneath. No Fun says party of druids heat all the metal weapons. Haha. That would be really amusing, actually. And also a form of protest, perhaps. This is what you get, guys. This is what you get. Look at me. You're not going to do that to me. I've got a stick. I'm going to club you with. And if you heat that up, I mean, I guess it'll catch on fire, but let's not get into that. Okay. So that's heat metal. That is heat metal. Hold animal. 3rd level druid spell. Duration is pretty lengthy. You get an hour plus 10 minutes per level. And this is something that you could very well just do to render a combat more than essentially meaningless, depending on how big of a pack you're dealing with. No more than 4 normal or giant animals with total hit dice equal to or less than those of the druid. So, I mean, 4 hit die, or I say 3rd level druid, I don't know, fifth or 6th level, I think, in total level. So about 6 hit die, probably ish. Then they are really not going to be, they're not going to be holding back a whole ton of animals, I guess. But the thing is, being completely immobilized is pretty serious business. They're just pin cushions at that point. You can just throw rocks at them until they die, if that's what you desire to do. Or you can just walk away from them. Getting an hour plus head start is pretty decent, I would say. Hold monster. So notice that there is nothing about any... Oh, there is a saving throw. There is a saving throw here. You have a saving throw for hold monster as well. And this is a much higher level spell. So obviously, animals are maybe a little bit less of a concern when you got a druid around. I mean, that should be obvious. It should be obvious. But every now and then they give me a reason to be like, maybe the druid's not so bad. So if you target a single creature, the saving throw is made at a -2. So there's a little bit of a reason to use it, even if you're not up against a big group. And especially if that creature is probably about the limit of how many hit die you can affect. Hold plant. Y'all ever seen Little Shop of Horrors? Feed me, Seymour. So 1d4 plants or plant-sized creatures. Or I'm sorry, plant creatures that become completely immobilized. A lot of them are going to be immobilized anyway, but not all. Caster may also target. It's the same spell. It is literally the same spell. It's just that this one's 5th level and it's for plants. The cleric version of Hold Person and the magic user version of Hold Person. So I do think it's interesting that they do get these at different levels. And the cleric has more range and a fixed duration of 9 turns, whereas the magic user is 1 hour plus 1d10 or 10 minutes per level. I'm reading too fast, I think, is the problem. So same parameters as a charm person as far as how many they can target. So I don't really I care for stuff like that, because then you have to go reference back if you want the specifics right there in the section, or if maybe you don't have it memorized. What exactly are the parameters? Charm person, okay, this is page 21. Let's see what the parameters for that are. It's been a while since I read this. Like, not that long. All right, charm person. Human size or smaller. Goblins or dryads succeeds. Saving throw. They fall under the influence. I remembered it being very, very, very chill. I went way too far, and I apologize. Okay. Okay, so that is referring to who falls under person. So they may also target it's they get immobilized. It's pretty basic. Hold person's always been a pretty powerful spell. Hold portal. The classic. Don't open that door. Hodor. It's the Hodor spell. It Hodors for the duration until dispelled. It's just 2d6. First level spell. Referee's discretion as for range. For some reason, which, creatures with magic resistance can shatter the spell without effort. I think that's an interesting way to handle it, because I believe that in the past it was, or actually I guess in the future, in the future it was dependent on their hit die. I think that's how it was handled. If they had a high enough hit die, it's just like boom, they can break right through, or there's so many rounds that they have that they can do it. Let's check comments. Druids are just crappy clerics. Okay. Druids are free hugging clerics. I'm a free hugging cleric. What are you talking about? And I'm not a druid. I refuse to be called a druid. Druids are hippos. Another reason to go on a crusade. Always found it, Husha Shebega says, always found it interesting that clerics get hold person faster than magic users, but never get hold monster. That is interesting. That is very interesting. Huh. You would think that they may be a little bit more prone to holding monsters than people. But I guess you could be wrong. Malaki says, I had gotten a class creation book for BX and was rereading it last night. There is a Crusader class. Interesting. A 28 millimeter apparently made the joke before I did. He said Hodor. He said feeling punny today. So either same time or, yeah. JP says, I simultaneously love and hate that the range is close-ish. Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about that stuff whenever it's just completely under discretion like that. Holy Word's a cool spell. I like it because it's very flavorful. It's just like immediately you're just you speak a holy word dramatically. Speaking of a holy word dramatically affects all those within the range of its divine power. Those less than 5 hit die are slain. Doesn't say what kind of creatures. They're just creatures. So you would assume that this would be monsters, chaotic creatures, something like that. It's just creatures here. Now, this isn't creatures in the 5e definition. It's like, creature is something that's not an object. At least I would hope not. It's like everybody's dead. Yay. Anyway, creatures of 5 to 8 hit die are stunned for 2d10 turns, which is a long time. That's more than long enough to just stab them. They're dead. And creatures with 9 to 12 hit die are deafened for 1d6 turns. Creatures with 13 plus hit die are unaffected, but probably impressed. There are a few little things here that Matt says that I really like. He's got some funnies. He's got some funnies up in here. Okay. Ice Storm. I don't hear a whole lot about Ice Storm, really. So 1 round is how long it lasts. 120 feet, 4th level magic spell. Whirling vortex of ice, snow, and hail forms in a cube roughly 30 feet across. Massive hailstones inflict 3d10 points of damage. No saving throw applies to all within the area. A cube 30 feet across, roughly. I mean, so it's a pretty good area. It's a decent amount of damage. There's nothing really to write home about. I mean, it's fine. It is fine. Insect Plague is probably one of my favorites, just because, you know, you can get really gross with the descriptions, you know, of things that are unfortunate enough to be in the path of that thing. Only works outdoors. Insect Storm, it gathers and goes wherever the caster directs. Covers 400 square feet, 20 by 20 feet, with roughly corresponding height. Any creature with 2 or fewer hit die exposed to the cloud of insects flees in terror. No saving throw. I can, you know, anything that just groups everything based on hit die means that there's doubtlessly going to be some funny situation that happens. Like, I'm picturing a group of skeletons that like go just screaming in terror, you know, running away from these insects. It's just, I know that you know, the referee can always just be like, it didn't work on them. They're skeletons. They're under the, you know, they don't care. They don't care. They only care about getting their bones bashed and crap like that. Dark Knight says, dumb that the hippies would get hold monster because monsters harm nature. Wouldn't harm nature. Monsters wouldn't harm nature, you say? 28 millimeter says, holy word for evil clerics is Screamo. Yes, I like Screamo. JP says the evil aligned holy word is bird. Bird is the word. Husha Chibega says, with the staggered hit die progression, only fighters getting 1 every level, and the hit die cap around level 9 to 10 makes holy word very effective against PCs and NPCs. I did forget about that particular facet of Swords and Wizardry. Thank you for reminding me that there are skipsies as far as getting health increases or hit die increases. It is kind of scattered. Okay. Invisibility lasts until it dispelled or an attack is made. So this is the ultimate getaway spell. You know, you can just keep this, if you're a magic user, keep this spell in your pocket, and whenever everybody else dies, cast it on yourself and then just walk out. Just walk out. As long as the creature is not so high level that they can just see you, because some will be able to see you, then just walk out. And don't make noise, because approximate location to me means that if they have exceptional hearing, then there's a chance they may be able to hit you. Okay, invisibility 10-foot radius. All right, so if they move outside of it, then it's broken, I would imagine. Huh? Yeah, the radius of invisibility around the recipient, which moves with them. Nothing inside can be attacked. Okay, so yeah, you can put that on somebody, and then it's going to travel with them. Pretty cool. Invisible Stalker until mission is completed. Close range. So summon or perhaps create an invisible stalker. Invisible stalkers are assholes. They're total assholes. You have to kill it to deter them from the mission. And knock. And that just reminds me that I really want that knock zine. Both of them. They look really cool. So immediately it unblocks and unbars all doors, gates, and portals within its range, including those held by or locked by normal magic. Interesting. So this has no mention of chests, doors, gates, and portals. It does not say that it unlocks any, lock. It just says doors, gates, and portals. So you can't use knock on a treasure chest if it's locked. All right, Legend Lore. I love this spell. Over the course of long and arduous magical efforts, 1d100 days, the caster gains knowledge about some legendary person, place, or thing. Spell's final result may be no more than a cryptic phrase or riddle, or it may be quite specific. I love it just because it makes time pass quite extensively. But it's kind of weird that it's a spell and not like an ability that the magic user gets at the point that they get 6th level magic user spells. Something to think about. Because it sounds like they're doing research and all that kind of stuff, rather than just casting a spell. That's my nitpick. Levitate. I mean, it's levitate. Nothing really terribly interesting there, other than they can use it to climb up things pretty easily. It's just there's a limit. Cannot levitate more than 20 feet per level from the ground where the spell was cast. Okay. Light. So light in this cannot be reversed into darkness, and it can't blind. So there goes everybody's favorite cleric thing to do whenever they are doing low levels. Blinding creatures. Sorry. It is not here. So it does last for an hour plus 10 minutes per level. And it produces light as bright as a torch to a radius of 20 feet. The cleric version lasts for 2 hours. So. All right. Comments. Dark Knight says invisible creatures are assholes. Yes, they are. JP says checks out the loud sound balances out its low level and high utility. Is he talking about knock? Maybe. Husha Shebega says, how do you handle whether an invisible person can see themselves or not? I assume they can't see themselves or comrades and have to hold hands to stay together. Yeah, I could definitely see it. That's how I would see it. If the question was asked, that's how I would see it. So I might even write that a note in my margins, because sometimes it's like hard to think of that question in the moment and then miss something that maybe somebody wanted to do something, but they wouldn't have known where somebody was at necessarily otherwise. Dark Knight says, if you want to play a bard, take legend lore. There you go. 28mm says, legend lore, exposition spell. Dark Knight says, light is one of my favorite cleric thing. Alex says, isn't darkness a level 2 spell 2 in Swords and Wizardry? I think so. I think it is. Yes. Okay. We shall continue. Lightning bolt. 60 feet wide. 60 feet from the targeted point, almost 10 feet wide. Anyone in its path suffers 1d6 points of damage per level of the caster, just like your fireball. Half with a successful saving throw. Always extend 60 feet, even if this means it ricochets backward from something blocking its path. So, your lightning bolt can kill you. And I love that. It makes you want to ask whenever you're in a long corridor and, you end up rolling initiative and everything. Hey, DM, how long does this corridor look? Because we could wipe out a whole group of enemies if they're all stuck in a 10-foot wide corridor. But you could end up hurting yourself. Okay. This part is okay. So, but you can originate it from further away. That's the thing I was about to bring up. Limited Wish. So you have Limited Wish, 7th level spell, allows the caster to change reality, although in limited ways and sometimes only for limited periods of time. Such limitations are determined by the referee in accordance with the circumstances. Very, very vague. So this is a great way of just being like, listen, you can do some cool stuff with it, but not anything. It's not the same as having a genie come out of your lamp. Okay. So you have the locates. The locates are cool, especially locate object, because you can like find stairs or something like that, which is useful in dungeon delving. I don't see a lot of people take it, but whenever their magic swords have it, they're usually pretty happy. Okay. Locate plants. This could be very interesting if you're doing some obviously if you're doing some kind of quest that involves such a thing. But that being said, if you're not doing much with plants, it's completely useless. If you're not having the dimension of play that is, well, if you want to start making poison, of this kind, then you're going to need this plant or whatever. And then like venturing off and getting that kind of poison and, but it depends how much time you have to play. Some people don't have the time to play that they want to go through all of that kind of stuff. And they'd rather just let it boil down to a simple die roll as far as like how long it took them to find it, if they found it, that kind of thing. Lower water. Lower the depth of lakes, rivers, wells, and other bodies of water to 1/2 normal. There's not a limit there. It says other bodies of water. So do this a few times. Just get a bad guy to do this to the ocean a few times. Yeah. Just destroyed the world, guys. Everybody's going to die of thirst now. It's glorious. Why hasn't that been done? Why has that not been done? I am going to create the the lower water planet killer. Magic Jar. This is a pretty cool spell. Relocates the caster's life, essence, intelligence, and soul into an object of virtually any kind. The jar must be within 30 feet of the caster. Once in the magic jar, the caster can possess the bodies of other creatures and people, provided they are within 120 feet of the jar, and fail a saving throw. The caster can return to his soul to the magic jar at any time. If a body the caster controls is slain, the soul returns to the jar immediately. They can return to their original body whenever desired, thus ending the spell. If the caster's body is destroyed while his or her soul is in the magic jar, the soul no longer has a home other than within the magic jar. Although the disembodied wizard can still possess other bodies as before. If the soul itself is destroyed while the magic user's soul is within, the soul is lost. So, I mean, this is how you take this, you combine that with the lich up yonder, and there's your phylactery, basically. Except for you can possess people. Okay. Magic Missile. I mistakenly said that I thought for some reason Magic Missile wasn't in this, but it is. Because I know Magic Missile was not always in there, I don't think, in OD&D. Anyway, 150 feet. And so it says that you can have them roll to hit with a bonus to the roll and give them 1d6 plus 1 points of damage. Or it hits automatically doing 1d4 plus 1 points of damage. And you get more missiles as you get higher in level. It's not drastic. It's every 5 levels of experience. So it's a neat spell. It's a neat spell. Me personally, I don't like missing. So I'm probably going to go for the 1d4 plus 1 if I had the choice. If I'm choosing as the referee, I'll probably go with that. I'd probably go with that too. Okay, checking comments. Dark Knight says, lightning bolt 60 foot wide is Zeus casting the spell. Yes. Alex says, does that mean you can hit someone twice with one spell? Absolutely. Yes. Get them on the bounce back. Husha Shebega says, always thought save for half for lightning bolt didn't make sense. Was a bit samey with lightning or fireball. I changed it to save to negate with a penalty to save. Well, so here's the thing. It depends on if you're asking, if you're questioning, like, does a save mean I completely dodged it? Like completely to the extent, all that kind of stuff. And what does it mean to receive damage and all that kind of stuff. And to me, I think it's perfectly feasible for someone to make a saving throw and still be, lose HP, and that be them being more exhausted, because maybe now they had to jump out of the way and it was a desperate jump, and they had to like tuck and roll or something. Maybe they smacked their head, or just hit really hard on the ground. Maybe they're a little bit winded, a little more vulnerable, and now somebody who's following up with the next attack can absolutely finish them off. I don't really look at it as, it's kind of like the same thing with being hit in general. I don't look at making the save as you just completely avoided it 100%. Unless you have save to negate. If you have save equals nothing happens, then that's whenever I do that. But save versus half, I just look at it in a different way. With the lightning bolt, I'm just saying they probably like moved like a bat out of hell in order to avoid that thing, and may have winded themselves in the process. 28mm says all metal armor, no save. Okay. Alex was referring back to the water thing. He says, literally the plot of an Elric story. Big demon drinks the sea. That's awesome. Dark Knight says, I would say if you have a reflective metal shield, you can bounce the lightning bolt spell back to the caster. I don't know. That sounds kind of video gamey. I feel like, I don't know. I mean, it would conduct it. It would probably hurt your arm, I would think. I don't know. Scientist. We need a scientist in the audience, please. Boots of rubber for better protection. Yeah. Makes me think of an episode of Yu Yu Hakusho. Yes, I make an anime reference. I'm sorry. Magic Mouth, permanent until triggered, dispelled. And basically you can have it speak a message up to 30 words long. Pretty cool. And you get it pretty early. 2nd level spell. You can get it pretty early. You're not guaranteed spells. Mass Charm. 30 hit die of creatures. In any combination, all saving throws are made with a penalty of -2. But it's a high level spell. But it's beautiful. Just think of your bad guy rolling up into town, like the big bad wizard that everybody fears. Just walking into town. I'm going to take all of you, And there they go. They're all under the influence now. One day you just go back to town and it's like everybody is acting strange. And they really like this one guy that everybody before was afraid of. I like it. Mass Invisibility. I don't know if I even read this one. This one's, I think I skipped it because that was like my brain. 7th level spell. 1d3 times 100 mana horse-sized creatures invisible, as if they had been affected by a single invisibility spell. So that means they get the full effect. It's not like just, them being in a range. No, it lasts until they attack or are dispelled. So this is an army spell. This is, like we're sending units behind the enemy. We're going to put them in a charge, and they're just going to do a charge from behind. They're not even going to be seen. They're going to do catastrophic damage to the enemy. Never going to see it coming, unless they might hear it coming. But if they're already fighting in a melee with other units, then probably won't even hear it. So I guess they might still the grass kicking up, though. Anyway, it's a cool spell. I like it. And that's a lot of people you can affect. Mass Morph. Well, actually, let's take that back a second. You could also sneak a small army into a fortress. That's beautiful. Beautiful. Mass Morph. 100 or fewer man or horse-sized creatures appear to be innocent trees. So perfect, the creatures moving through the forest do not detect the deception. Maze. Targeted creature disappears into a gap in reality where strange curving and branching passages conceal the way out. Creatures with an intelligence score of lower than 6 require 2d4 times 3 rounds, or in minutes, to escape the interdimensional prison. creatures with intelligence. So it's just based like you're just locked there depending on how smart you are. Although monsters are not described with specific intelligence scores, should not be hard to determine which category any specific monster falls, unless ruled otherwise by the referee. There is no saving throw to avoid the spell. It makes me think of that story in Tales of the Dying Earth. That it wasn't a maze, but he had I think it was it wasn't Tarjan. It may have been Tarjan. Stuck like in tiny mode in a little like obstacle place with a monster that kept on trying to kill him. It was amusing. I like those vibes. Very evocative spell. Meteor Swarm. Tiny meteors. The caster may hurl 4 normal fireballs for 10d6 damage or 8 fireballs of 10-foot diameter that inflict 5d6 points of damage. Targets are permitted a saving throw, allowing them to take half damage. It's a lot less impressive than it sounds whenever you say Meteor Swarm. I don't know, just stuff coming from space. Sounds cool. But whenever it's just like, hey, you do some damage. These just come from their hands. So they just look like cool fireballs. Mind Blank. Protects against all magical spying, including crystal balls, spells, and even magical scrying by minor deities. I feel like that's a very misleading. That sounds more like Feeble Mind. It's like you're wiping the slate clean. And maybe it prevents, from ESP, people being able to read your mind. That's what that also sounds like. Mind Blank is just... What are you even talking about? Mirror Image. I still didn't get the new mouse. Mirror Image. Second level magic user, around caster, 1 hour or until destroyed. So, usually you cast it before you get into a battle. And 1d4 images. It's just like it always is. When one of the images gets hit, which it's determined randomly which one is hit, then it disappears until they're all gone, or you run out of time. Monster summoning is cool, and there's a lot of stuff to it. You got charts to roll on for it, and yeah, they serve you until the time is over. They do not appear immediately. There's a whole 10 minutes before they appear, so this is a preemptive thing. Woo. And that goes all the way up to wraiths and ogres and owlbears and shadows and werewolves, and that's monster summoning 4. It doesn't go higher than that. It goes higher than that. I thought it stopped at 4. I guess it stops at 6. So it's gonna Hydra, Chimera, Black Dragon, White Dragon. That's intense, guys. That's a little intense. Not gonna lie. Flesh Golem. That's sexy. It goes up to 7. Are you serious? Purple Worm? Red Dragon. Well, Red Dragon. We've already been going through dragons. Purple Worm. Iron Golem. God. Okay. If it was going to go 8, I don't know if I could handle that. It stopped at 7. I'm glad. That would be too much. Too much excitement. Okay. Alex says, man, all these spells that affect large groups really makes me crave mass combat encounters. Well, guess what? We got rules for that in Swords and Wizardry, Buckaroony. And Siege Warfare. We have that too. Eron says, rubber Batman cape. Oh, for the lightning protection. Yes. Mind Blank occurs naturally after age 55, 28 millimeters says. I feel like I'm feeling it now, and I'm not even close to 55. Shebega says Mass Morph is for reenacting Macbeth. The trees. Eron says Intellect Fortress occurs naturally when on the internet, though it takes on a different meaning. Dark Knight says Mass Morph is the reason why D&D World should hate bards, because they would turn NPCs into their fetishes. How did we get to this? Oh, well, you can only turn them into trees. So I think that you were assuming that you could turn them into anything. So there you go. 20 millimeter says Maze Wizard receives David Bowie wig for 10 rounds. Oh, yes. Labyrinth. Give me them Labyrinth references. Hell yeah. Eron says wig and tight pants. Okay. Dark Knight says it doesn't go high enough. 10 hit dice. Lets players summon Death Knights. Well, actually, I don't think that there is a Death Knight stat block in this. Just so you know. I mean, there are no stat blocks. Well, there are some stat blocks in this, but as far as in the monster book, actually, I could look for you right now because. Wa-na-na-na. Let's see. Death Knight, Knight of Death, Death Knight. Death Knight. Nope. No Death Knight here. There's probably some in a supplement, but not in there. In fact, it might be in this one. Let me see if it's in this one. More monsters. No. No Death Knight. They do have Can of Worms and Lightning in a bottle, though. Just in case you were curious about that. Okay. He says F-Mag has Death Knights. Probably wouldn't be too hard to move over, I would imagine. Okay. Back to spells. So we have Move Earth. Duration 1 hour, effects permanent. So you can, for 1 hour, move Earth, but the effects are permanent. Only used above ground. Ooh, sad. Allows the caster to move hills and other raised land or stone at a rate of 6 feet per minute. 60 feet per turn. Okay. Yeah. It's the I'm lazy. I don't feel like shoveling and taking a long time spell. Neutralized poison. Counteracts poison if used promptly. It cannot be used to bring the dead back to life later. Okay, so the reason that is referenced is because there have been references to if somebody died of poison, they can't be brought back to life because the poison is still in their blood, basically. And they would just die again. So I'm assuming that that's why they brought it up. I don't know anyone that would be like, oh, he died of poison. Let me use the Neutralized poison spell. He's probably fine. Unless that maybe they're like, okay, we took out the poison. Let's do CPR. All right. Obscuring Mist. Misty Vapor. 1 turn per level. 2nd level. Druid spell. 20 feet. A vapor seethes outward from the casting point, billowing forth to fill a radius of 20 feet plus 10 feet per level of the caster. Cool. So you can do the whole, parting of the Red Sea thing, part water. I'm kind of offended. But at least the cleric does it better. There you go. And it lasts longer. And they can do it farther. Past plants. I like this. You can teleport through plants. Just wait. Oh no. Hold on. Is this that's not the right one? Okay. Yeah. They can emerge from a distant tree of the same kind. Step into one tree and emerge. Okay, yeah. So yeah, it's a plant teleport thing. So based on what kind of plant it is. I love it. It's beautiful. It is beautiful. You can just be a total, just be like, wee, I'm over here. I love anything that allows a getaway whenever everybody else has died. It kind of makes me think there would be people that are like, oh my God, it's a druid and he's running away from us and he's getting near a tree. Don't let him touch that tree. Don't let him touch the tree. No. Pass wall. It just creates a hole in the wall. I created a magic item that did that on a much smaller scale, just so you could like just look through, create yourself a little peephole or glory hole or however you want to look at it. Permanency. Permanent until dispelled by an opponent of twice the caster's level. So it makes the effect of another spell permanent unless a magic user of twice the level dispels it. No more than one permanency spell is ordinarily possible on any one creature object, and no more than 2 upon a creature. Considerable referee discretion is required for the use of the spell. Many spells should not be subject to being made permanent. I mean, immediately I'm thinking haste, permanency. And just do that on everybody. And then everybody's permanently hasted. Yeah. So yeah, I would want to come up with some greater like principle for how that should work that prevents that kind of weirdness from happening. Phantasmal Force. You've got the whole disbelieving illusions and stuff like that. The illusion disappears when it is touched, but if the viewer believes the illusion is real, it can cause damage. Unless the referee rules otherwise, victims of the spell are permitted a saving throw, and the victim cannot cause more than 2d6 points of damage per victim. This depends on circumstances. Truly brilliant use of the spell can be quite devastating, and a poorly thought out illusion might cause almost immediately disbelief. I kind of would want to troll the DM with this a little bit just to see what they're going to consider to be too stupid. Did I say that I was a bad player? I am. Phase door. 7 uses. Invisible portal about 7 feet high, 10 feet wide, 10 feet deep, accessible only to the caster. A barrage of dispel magic spells can close the passage, but only if the combined level of the dispelling casters is twice that of the portal's creator. Okay. But all right, so I mean, I guess you can just make a new entrance for yourself through what normally would be just wall, and only you can use it. So I guess it could be a way to bypass something if you didn't have a thief and there's just a door that you can't get through, or you don't want to mess with some kind of magical lock on it or something, which I've created dungeons where that would have been really useful. Okay. PDX GearCon says no Death Knight in the set, but plenty equivalents in Tome of Horrors, Monstrosities, etc. Check out the SRD site. I will. Okay. Victor D20 is back to tell us about his adventures. I can't go over them in this video, man. I'm sorry. But I'm good to see you because then you can entertain people. Husha Shebega said, had this idea of a wizard using move earth and transmute mud to rock to quickly construct a tower. JP says that's always been a dream of his to play the combat engineer wizard. Alex says past plant is cool with different distances based on trees. Make the type of forest you're in matter. The ash being the longest is cool considering the world tree is an ash. 28mm says Aaron has perv brain. What did I say? Haste permanency, everyone dies within a year from old age. I could see that. Eron says, also people go nuts in haste permanency, not to mention the speed force ghosts. K5K says, permanency has a lot of limitations, the main one being it's very high level spell in this and most systems. You have to be or convince a high level mage to actually cast it. That's true. Victor says he's going to do it next time. Sorry, man. I'm trying to do like a thing where people can learn stuff, and I don't want to deviate too much from our topics. That being the spells and whatnot. You know, I was planning on doing this to Z, but now I'm going through even more detail than I usually was. So I don't know. I don't even know myself anymore. Okay, so we did phase door, plant doorway. They can do the same thing, but through trees and stuff. It's interesting that so they can use phase door 7 times, but plant doorway is 3 turns plus 1 turn per level. So as a duration. But it's a pathway for the caster. Only the caster can move through it. It is cool though, because you can kind of picture like plant these big, mean old plants kind of like moving out of the way for the druid. Plant growth. Permanent until dispelled. Undergrowth in the area suddenly grows into an impassable forest of thorns and vines. Up to 300 square feet of ground can be affected. The caster can decide the shape of the area to be enchanted. An alternate version would be to allow the spell to affect an area of 300 by 300 feet for a total of 90,000 square feet. This I've been watching too much Trailer Park Boys, and I'm thinking of Ricky using this to hide his weed garden. Okay. Polymorph Object. An object can be turned into another object. The degree of change affects the spell's duration. Animal to animal changes, vegetable to vegetable changes, mineral to mineral changes are all likely to remain permanent until dispelled. Thus, turning a human into an orc, turning a wall into a pile of sand would both result in permanent change. On the other hand, turning a shrub into a thinking human being would last only a small number of turns. Determining how long a proposed use of the spell lasts is the province of the referee. It's important to remember that this is an 8th level spell of considerable power, but not as powerful as a 9th level wish spell. I like it. You could do some amusing stuff with that as just having a high level magic user in the world that just goes around and turns people into weird things. It's pretty amusing. Combine that with permanency. I'm just thinking of combined everything with permanency. I mean, you could combine, okay. So the permanency magic user, maybe the druid is like, hey, could you make my little doorway permanent, please? Pretty please. I'll pay you considerable sums and I'll get you test subjects. Probably people that cut down the forest. Polymorph Other. Permanent till dispelled, 4th level. Turn you into another creature. The polymorph creature gains all the abilities of the new form, but retains its own mind and hit points. So I do like that they retain their own hit points and mind. That's that question answered. Nice. But you can turn somebody into a dragon. Like, I mean, a 4th level spell is nothing to sneeze at. But, you could turn your buddy into a dragon to fight another dragon, maybe. Nothing about size restraints or anything like that. Polymorph Self, 1 hour or referee's discretion. And you get their attributes, use of wings, for example, but not its hit points or combat abilities. So there's your separation there. You can do it to somebody else, and then they'll get all the goods except for the hit points. But if you do it to yourself, then you might get to fly or something like that. Referee might allow the benefit of the new form's armor class if it is due to heavily armored skin. A great deal of the spell's effect is left to the referee to decide. All right. Iran says, consider the hell of being a shrub, gaining sentience, and then realizing you only have a few minutes to live and then go back into a shrub. Ah, the human condition. Yes. Power word blind. I mean, so there's so many high level spells that I just haven't really tinkered that much with, just because I don't really play at these high levels. So speaks a word of power to a particular creature. If they have 40 hit points or fewer, instantly blinded for 2d4 days. If they have up to 80, then 1d4 days. If they have more than 80, no effect. Power word kill. They just die if they have less than 50 hit points. And if they have more, they're not affected. Power word stun. I mean, you get it. You get it. I'm pretty sure you get it. It stuns them. 2d6 turns at the most. Prayer. So following a melee round, cleric of third level cleric spell, they can seek short-term favor from the gods to help some other spell or attack to succeed. Prayer affects a 20 by 20 foot area, causing a saving throw penalty to all creatures in that area. Penalty is -1 plus an additional -1 for every 10 caster levels. The penalty actually takes effect in the melee round following the one in which it was cast. So you can just make it a little bit more likely for something to succeed, which may be worth it. I don't know. May not be. The fact that it's a 20 by 20 foot area means that you could, get a few little guys. Maybe if like you're about to do a charm spell or whatever, and they're entitled to a saving throw, and you're like, I really don't want them all. I want them all to fail it. Maybe worth it to go ahead and say a little prayer. Predict weather. Druid, so this is immediate, centered on caster, first level. So they get this spell at first level, period, just first level. They can tell what the weather is going to be like for the next 12 hours in the immediate vicinity. And there's a 5% chance that it will be incorrect. That is something that I always liked to have in conjunction with, I think it was Call Lightning or something like, I think it was something like that, because I was an agricultural cleric in 2nd edition. Prismatic Sphere. Prismatic Sphere is pretty nuts. So you got 7 colors in the sphere, 10-foot radius, and in order for it to be destroyed, each layer must be destroyed in turn from red to orange to yellow to blue to indigo and then to the innermost violet layer. Creature of 7 or fewer hit die that looks upon the sphere is blinded for 1d6 turns. So the sphere is pretty powerful. And, you just plop it on down there. And you got the red one causes 12 points of damage and stops arrows or missiles. The orange one, 24 points of damage when touched, stops arrows and other non-magic missiles. Yellow, 48 points when touched, blocks all breath weapons. Green causes death when touched, blocks any scrying and detection type spells from seeing within. Blue turns flesh to stone when touched, saving throw allowed, blocks all divine clerical magic from passing through. Indigo causes death and destroys the soul utterly when touched, saving throw allowed. And violet causes permanent insanity when touched, blocks arcane magic user spells. So this is a really badass spell. There are ways for them to break off each layer. So the red layer can be negated by an ice storm or other cold-based attacks, orange by lightning, yellow by magic missile or magic arrow, green by pass wall, interestingly, or other earth-moving magic, blue by disintegrate, indigo by dispel magic, and violet by continual light. So, I mean, it's a very esoteric spell. There's a lot of elements involved to understand. And in the game world, I would think that probably very few would understand it. This is a 9th level spell. That's way up there. But it's really badass. Really, really badass. Produce fire. You make a burn. No longer in 10 minutes without fuel, but sets alight any flammable materials. Can be reversed to quench flames rather than ignite them. I do like in old school essentials, and I got to say it, whenever they have these reverse options, they'll have like a separate paragraph. They'll say reverse does this. That way you can look at, oh yeah, you can reverse it, rather than just reading that it's in the paragraph. Because a lot of people don't read the whole thing. Produce flame. Causes no damage, otherwise hot as natural fire. You just make fire come in your hand. It can be thrown up to a distance of 30 feet to ignite flammable materials. And it can be extinguished immediately whenever the caster wishes it gone. Lasts for 2 turns per level. And they can access this as a second level spell. I think they can access this at third level. Because they start with first level spells at first level, and it makes me salty. Project Image. They can project an image of himself or herself to a maximum of 250 feet. It mimics their sounds and gestures, but also any spells being cast appear to originate from the image. They don't have an illusionist in here, I don't think. No, they don't. Protection from Evil Cleric, magic user. First level for both. 2 hours. Creates a magical field of protection immediately around the caster, blacking out all enchanted monsters such as elementals and demons. Evil monsters suffer a -1 penalty to hit the caster, and the caster gains a +1 on saving throws against such attacks. If the caster already has magical bonuses to saving throws or armor class, the bonus from the magic circle has no effect, although the protective circle still functions against enchanted creatures. Magic user version is exactly the same, except that it has a duration of 1 hour. It's okay. You know, that could really help you out. You don't want to get hit. So it's not bad. Not bad. Protects from Evil, 10-foot radius. So okay. Yeah, so you can just do the same thing, and it affects everybody within 10 feet. Let's check comments. K5K says, how does casting time work in Swords and Wizardry? Is wish as fast as magic bolt or whatever? Casting time is not really, so as far as combat goes, it's not a thing. It's just you declare your spell, and then it's like you get to the part where spells go off, and that's it. So yeah. And you got no segments or any of that kind of stuff. Very basic. Not as basic as just, roll a d6 and then whoever, but whoever wants to go. And everything happens at once. It's not quite that basic, but all right. Protection from lightning. Protects. Oh, wait. There's one more. Low HP dragon. You get hit for large damage. Does it have small, large damage weapon values? This one, I don't believe it does. I don't believe that this edition does have that. I think that was an AD&D thing. Arn Man says, weather spells best if you actually include weather in the adventure at all times. That's true. Dreaded quest spell, rename it to Railroad. Railroad me daddy. So protection from lightning. You get half. You take half damage. You can protect somebody from that with it. Normal missiles, invulnerable to non-magical missiles. Other larger missiles such as boulders overcome the spell's magic. That's a cool spell. Purify food and drink. First level spell for cleric, which they get at second level. They can get food and water for up to 12 people. They can purify. Okay. I was about to say that's really, really, really generous. Purify water, which the druid gets at first level, so they get it at actual first level, whereas the cleric gets it at second level, but it's a first level spell because that is different. They can make 10 gallons of water pure, removing all poisons, algae, and other such contaminants. Pyrotechnics. Druids get it as a third level spell. Magic users as a second level spell. Lasts for an hour. They can create fireworks or blinding smoke from a normal fire source as a torch or campfire. Referee decides exactly how much it produces. Quest, 5th level cleric spell. If the spell succeeds, saving throw applies. Caster can set a task for the spell's victim. If the victim does not It does the same thing as the gayish for the most part, except for an attempt to entirely abandon the quest incurs a curse set by the caster in the wording of the original quest. I like it. I like it against NPCs. Against PCs, you know, it could be it could make matters interesting, but that's some pretty serious business. Raise Dead. Oh man. Okay. Let's just immediate 5th level cleric spell, which you get 5th level cleric spells at I want to say like 7th level, maybe. I think it's 7th level. Somebody could, yeah, I think it's 7th level. I can't remember. Somebody's gonna have to tell me. I think. Raise a corpse from the dead, provided it's not been dead too long. That's really the only limit. Normal time limit is 5 days. Every caster level higher than 8th, they get another 5 days. Characters with low con may not survive the ordeal. You've got that whole percentage for surviving that based on their con that you'll find. Even those with a strong constitution, a period of at least a week is required before they can function normally. This spell functions only on human-like races, that is ones that can be used for player characters. Nothing about like what state the body has to be in other than not old. That's one thing that I just don't like about it. So it kind of makes the whole thing about negating poison, that whole thing kind of like what? Because that one, it says that you can't use negate poison to, not negate, nullify. Yeah, I think it's negate poison to bring someone back to life. So yeah, that probably just means that people generally interpret a poisoned to death body to be incapable of being brought back to life. But it's not here. It's not listed here. Read languages. 1st level, magic user. It works for 1 or 2 readings. It can decipher directions, instructions, and formulae in languages unknown to the caster, particularly useful for treasure maps, but it does not solve any codes. Sounds pretty legit. Read magic. This is something that every magic user should have. Every magic user. To me, you should always start with read magic, no matter what, every time. Lasts for 2 scrolls or other magical writings. This spell allows them to read magical writings upon scrolls and occasionally dungeon walls. Without the use of the spell, magical writing cannot be read by even a magic user. There you go. Reincarnation. Now, Reincarnation I actually really like because it's random. So they can't have been dead for more than a week. They get a new body, and it could be some kind of animal. A bear, a lion, a mouse, a raven, a stag, or a wolf. And then for the magic users, they get reincarnation as well. And they get a D20 chart for it. It says if they are a normal character race, then you can roll a D6 to determine their new level, which is kind of neat. You know, they don't have to start all the way back at 1. But, I mean, they could be a bugbear. They could be a centaur, a dog, a cat, a wolf, harpy, hobgoblin, kobold, lizard man, lycanthropy, minotaur, ogre mage, orc, troll, wyvern, depending on how you pronounce it. So there is the age-old question. I've just reincarnated one of my friends, my lawful friend, and they are now a dreaded harpy or an orc or a wyvern. Can they still be my buddy? The answer is no. Not here. Here there's nothing really to say about that at all. So rule it however you want. To me, Let's see here. K5K says, bah, I've gone and read the PDF now. More to read. 28mm says, Ray's dead. Party no longer needs to carry Bernie around. He moves on his own to get himself rezzed. That is interesting. Okay. Adding a cost, Husha Shebeka says, adding a costly material component to resurrection type spells, make Ray's dead cost 1K is a good limiting factor. It is definitely a good limiting factor, and we need stuff for them to spend money on always. So that is a way to go about it. But once they get it, man, once they get it, it's like, at that point, 1K of gold, they were flush in it in my game. But part of that was that we were mostly just doing dungeon delves. So they weren't really spending as much time out of the dungeon in order to spend money on land and, hookers and blow, basically. Eron says, I gathered you could play as a monster, but there's no leveling. Hence the discussion about levels for races that can have levels. Yeah, it's just that whole question of like, does the soul carry the personality, basically, is kind of the thing that I'm wondering. That's the question. How intrinsic is that quality? Because you're still dealing with the physiology of that creature, different brain functions and stuff like that. There's bound to be some kind of changes, I would think. That's just me. People can always just be like, well, dragons, magic, wee. Anyway, remove curse. I hate it. Removes 1 curse from a person or object. 3rd level cleric spell. 4th level magic user spell. And curse be gone. I hate it because I don't like it. I like for curses to be something that, aren't irrelevant at that point. But for cursed items, okay, you got me there. If we're talking about like just, I got a cursed piece of armor, cursed scroll, something like that, and I've got some really annoying effect or something. Sure, but I like there to be curses that are deeper than that, and you can differentiate between the two, at your table. But I've had arguments with people because they're like, I got remove curse, it should work. And I'm like, well, I mean, this is not a regular curse. And you're just a wee little cleric. A wee little 5th level cleric. Repel wood. A mystical druidic force issues forth from a place designated by the caster, roughly the shape of a wall. Power rolls forward at a rate of 5 feet per round directly away from the caster, inexorably pressing all wood or wooden objects backward. Once the power is set in motion, it cannot be stopped other than by the caster's command. Lasts for 1 turn per level, so that's quite a while. And keep in mind, by the time you get that thing's going to be lasting for quite a while. You're going to be pushing things for quite a while. It's interesting. Repulsion. Any creature trying to move toward the caster finds itself moving instead away. Restoration. 7th level cleric spell. So this can restore levels lost. It's a very high level spell to take care of that problem. So wraiths and shadows, stay away. Evil reversal allows them to drain a level from the target. Good level, the spell is exhausting to the caster, incapacitating them for 2d10 days. I like stuff like that. It's like this spell is here, but if you're going to use it, you're going to be pretty. At the discretion of the referee, this spell may restore lost points of attribute scores as well as lost levels. Resurrection, otherwise known as raise dead fully. So they don't need to recuperate. And you could, if you're evil, you can reverse it and cause death with no saving throw. That's pretty intense, if you ask me. I mean, just imagine, because I'm not going to typically have an evil cleric in a game as a player character. So that means it's probably going to be a bad guy, right? So, dead. That's how the player characters want to lose. That's how the players want to lose their player character. Because my cleric says so right now. Dead. I don't know if I like it. But at that point in the game, if you were to give them a saving throw, they're probably going to pass it most of the time. Okay. Whoops. Iran says, I would trust the players to RP those changes, and I ostensibly agree. Okay. Regarding the different physiology causing them to behave a little bit differently, even though they've got the same soul. Arnman says the soul should be just as intact in a reincarnated state as a soul would be intact in a non-physical plane. It might be good to keep it consistent. But you have to ask yourself, like, what exactly does a soul do? What exactly is its function? You have to define that in the world itself. I mean, there's some stuff I might argue. I might just be like, this is a game where souls don't really exist, and any kind of shadows and spirits and wraiths and things like that. That is some kind of reflection of, metaphysical bullcrap that, reverberations of time and space. You could do all kinds of weird stuff like that. It could be that souls are just, the consciousness entirely. But I mean, if that's the case, does that mean that if you sustain a head injury that causes you to have like brain damage that would change your personality in real life, does that mean that your soul is damaged as well? That's a question to think about. Arnman says, I've dated a repel wood. Oh man. I have Becca says, I have a removing a curse that was inflicted by a scroll causes the curse to reappear on the formerly blank scroll. Oh, I love that. That is cool as hell. Let's see. Iran says, in my humble opinion, death does not like said games. Iran says, I would rule that reincarnation only works on humans and demi-humans. Interesting. Because they have souls? We got into a whole soul discussion. Reverse gravity. I mean, it does what it says on the tin. Lasts for a minute. Not very long. Everything falls upward, and then when the spell ends, they fall downward. So maybe what you do is you wait, and you have everybody like tie themselves to something on the floor, like something fixed that can't fall off, and that way they just kind of float up a little bit, have some enemies come in the room. Whoop, boo. Because a minute of floating, it doesn't say how quickly. It says they fall upward. So I'm going to assume that this is fall, not float. So I'm going to say that that's probably going to be something fairly quick. It's just funny to picture because, they just like, wham, wham, just amusing. Rope trick. Everybody knows rope trick. Range as far as the caster can throw a rope. Well, that doesn't tell me anything. Because there's no mechanic for that or anything like that. So the rope itself can be pulled into the pocket dimension or left inside it. If it's left outside, someone may steal it. A caster and up to 3 others can climb the rope and disappear into another smaller dimension. It's a great spell. It's just, let's chill for a bit. You get an hour plus 1 turn per level to chill. What are you going to do with that time? I don't know. Doesn't say anything much about the pocket dimension. Is there a place to stand? Can you, get things prepared? Or are you just standing or like sitting on the rope. That's usually how I picture it, is you're just holding onto a rope in this empty pocket dimension with nothing else around you, which there's really not a whole lot you can do there other than just avoid people for a while, disappear if you need to. Everybody runs out of the room, closes the door behind them, rope trick, climb up, pull up the rope, they bust through. Where'd they go? I don't know what that was. Let me see what just happened. Okay. Eron says yes, basically because they have souls, or rather they were who the spell is designed to work on. Okay. K5K says, can you use rope trick from within rope trick? That depends on if you follow that whole thing about pocket dimensions within pocket dimensions and astral planes within astral planes and stuff, which those aren't exactly the same thing. So I would say yes. But the pocket dimension is temporary. So I think that there would be a problem once the first one expires, because the second one's created within the first one. And so like you could get lost. I feel like, I don't know. I feel like you could get lost in some kind of dimensional nothingness, which would be amusing. All right. Shape of change. So this one, the magic user can actually turn themselves into a functional creature of a different type, not just like I get their wings or whatever. You actually get their abilities as well. It'll last for quite a while. Shield, 2 turns. That's a long time. That's 20 combat rounds. So that's pretty nice. Very different from New Shield. New Shield is 1 round. Old Shield, 20 minutes, baby. 20 minutes. And it gives you a fixed armor class against of 2 or 17 against missile attacks, and 4 or 15 against other melee attacks. So I like it. Great spell. Silence, 15-foot radius. Nothing in the area from this area, no matter how loud, can be heard outside the radius. That's it. And it will follow you around. Simulacrum. You create a duplicate of yourself. Basic form is created from snow and ice, then must be animated. Animate death is an acceptable means. So this is like a multi-tier level spell because it asks for more spells. Is then used to imbue the animated form with intelligence and certain knowledge of the person being simulated. They gain 30 to 60% of the simulated creature's knowledge and experience. They follow the creator's orders. It's not a perfect representation of the original. Side by side, the differences are obvious. And the simulacrum is a magical creature detectable with a detect magic spell. If the original of the simulacrum dies, a strange effect begins. The simulacrum begins to gain the knowledge and experience of the dead individual at a rate of 1% per week to a maximum of 90%. So, in a way, do you live forever? Maybe. Kind of. No. Sleep. First level spell is the infamous spell, the notorious spell, the great spell, the only spell that you ever need for a while. Enemies are put into an enchanted slumber, no saving throw. No saving throw. Based on hit die is how many it affects. If it's greater than 4 hit die with no limit, it is going to affect 1, but it could be as many as 2d8 creatures if they have less than 1 hit die, or one or less. So that's pretty serious. Duration lasts for an hour, so they sleep for an hour, which is more than enough time to slit throats. There's the whole question of, can you like slit a dragon's throat? Obviously no, not while it's still asleep. It doesn't say anything about waking them up. You know, a lot of times they'll say, well, you can wake them up by slapping them or something like that. It doesn't say that. They're in an enchanted slumber. So to me, that sounds like it's saying they don't wake up. They're sleeping, guys. It's like a coma. I don't know how y'all feel about it. Slow is just haste, but it's backwards. 24 creatures if they fail a saving throw. And they can move and attack at half speed. And they gain a year of their life. I'm just kidding. They don't gain a year of their life. Snake Charm. So they can charm 1 hit die of snakes per level of the caster. Snakes obey the caster's commands. Lasts for up to 60 minutes. Between 30, wait a minute. Yeah, between 30 and 60 minutes. I keep on checking my math. I don't know why. Speak with animals. They can talk to animals. They won't attack unless the caster uses the spell to say something particularly offensive. If anybody's ever seen Rick and Morty, there's a really funny thing about squirrels on there that you could totally use. You could totally use that. I think you can understand this, you know. Speak with the dead. So 3rd level cleric spell. You can ask 3 questions. And there are limits based on how dead they are, how long they've been dead. But the answers might be cryptic. They don't have to give you like direct answers. Speak with monsters. And they are not forced to answer, even though they can ask 3d4 questions. That's a pretty cool spell, I got to say. Speak with plants. Now, this one is interesting. So, caster can speak and understand the speech of plants. Okay, so they speak. Plants smaller than trees obey commands, moving aside when requested, etc. It's just, I just think it's funny because, you know, I'm just picturing a very polite, you know, oh, could you please step aside? Why, certainly. Strength. 2nd level magic user spell lasts for 8 hours. So it can be maybe cast upon a fighter or a cleric. So there's a limit. You can't cast it on a magic user. Fighter gains 2d4 points of strength, and a cleric gains 1d6 points of strength. Cannot exceed 18 unless the referee chooses to allow additional bonuses resulting from additional strength. We're almost done, folks. And I have a surprise for everybody whenever I'm done. After I do something for work. K5K says that question, this is referring to the rope trick within a rope trick, was worth it for the puzzled expression alone. I know a player will ask it at some point. Probably for the hypothetical. I mean, you shouldn't ever get to a point that you have to worry about doing that unless they're like, well, we could just do like a bunch of rope tricks so that we can actually camp out for like several hours if we need to. Hushoshabega says Old Shield is more like 5e's Bark Skin and would be more useful to wizards and sorcerers in that game than what it actually does. Yeah. Hushoshabega also says, I always read Sleep's hit dice limitation to mean it doesn't work on targets with 5 or more hit dice. I don't know. I think it says 4+. At least on here. On here it does 4 to 4+. So, okay. So you could construe that as 4 to 4 plus 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4. Okay. Yeah, I think you're right. I wasn't thinking in terms of that. So yeah, I think you're right. Amend that. There are probably going to be people in the comments that point that out, you know, like on the replay, only for to find out that they were, I don't know. Someone else already beat them to it. Sticks to snakes. I love this. You can turn as many as 2d8 normal sticks into snakes, each one having a 50% chance of being venomous. So yeah, you got to roll a bunch of d100s. Snakes fall, or you don't have to roll a bunch of d100s, but roll a bunch of d6s and just 1 to 3 or 4 to 6. 4 to 6 venomous. Snakes follow commands, but turn back into sticks at the end of the spell or when killed. It's just beautiful. I just love that spell. Stop moving wrong way. Stone to Flesh, 6th level magic user spell. So if people turn to stone, then you're going to need a pretty high level magic user to take care of it. Saving throw is permitted to avoid being turned into stone, but if the spell succeeds, the victim is transformed into a statue. The stone to flesh version of the spell restores the victim to normal. So I've seen the age-old question, if you're turned to stone, are you dead? Like, are you just stone or are you dead because you're stone? This seems to think it's you're just stone. If you're turned to stone, you're just stone. And that whenever you're unstoned, you're back to life. Or you're still alive. So I don't know. I kind of like if if you're turned to stone, you're dead, but at the same time, it makes the whole distinction kind of stupid. Like, why would you have verse petrification or paralysis or whatever if it just means that you're dead? It wouldn't be save versus death, but anyway. So yeah, I think that that's the right way to go about it. But I just think it's interesting to think about, It is magic, so I guess there's no reason why it couldn't just put you back to the state you were before you became stone. I also kind of like the very metal idea of, you break the stone apart and it's like you got like a dead heart in it or something. I don't know. Suggestion. Or it turns your blood to stone. That'd be something interesting. Anyway, suggestion. 3rd level magic user spell, shouting distance, 1 week. Hypnotic suggestion to the intended victim. If they fail a saving throw, they carry out the suggestion as long as it can be performed within a week. Might not call for the action to be carried out immediately and may be contingent upon something else happening first. A suggestion that the victim commit suicide is only 1% likely to be obeyed, which is actually very, 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 very unlikely compared to some. Some I've seen, they'll get a saving throw, but it is a very low level spell. So that would be pretty intense. Symbol. So you can create a deadly magical trap in the shape of a divine rune, and it is a cleric spell. So, it's interesting. Others may be possible, but here's some examples. Symbol of discord causes all creatures in the hostile group to begin arguing, possibly fighting among themselves with lethal intent. Symbol of fear casts a fear spell. Symbol of sleep casts spell affecting double the normal creatures and with double the duration. Symbol of stunning, up to 150 points of creatures are affected as per power word stun. Divine symbols cannot be crafted in such a way that would cause a permanent effect, such as insanity, upon those affected. So there is a limit. Magic users also get it, but here are some things that they may be looking at. Symbol of death deals a total of 75 hit points of damage. Symbol of discord, same thing as before. Same thing with the fear one. Insanity, this one does have insanity. Up to 100 points of hit of creatures are driven insane by a curse. Symbol of sleep, cast a sleep spell. That's the same one as before. Same thing with the stun one as well. Telekinesis. It lasts for an hour. It's a 5th level magic user spell. They can move up to 20 pounds per level. Interpretation to determine whether or not the referee interpretation decides whether or not the objects can be thrown and at what speed. But you can make them float. Woohoo! By the time you get that spell, you're going to be lifting, it's going to be lifting some weight, some decent weight. Not like a ton, 20 per level is really not a whole lot. compared to what your fighter might be able to lift just by big gains. Eron says, roll X of any dice. Odds are venomous. Evens aren't. Yeah, odds and evens. That's another way to do it. Husha Shebeka says, I let stone to flesh also turn stone that was never a person to turn into meat. Turn rocks into meatballs or a wall into a massive steak. That reminds me, I've got a steak to grill tonight, or I've got 2 steaks to grill tonight. Arnman says, turn to stone. If your brain is stone, are you not conscious? If your brain is stone, you are not conscious. If you rule that player is conscious, then this might be a clue to the definition of a soul. True. There may be a connection there. Teleport, 5th level magic user spell. So there's that whole thing about how well do you know where you're trying to teleport to, and it can, your chances depend on that. So if you studied it carefully, there's only a 5% chance of error. It's pretty, it could be as much as a 25% chance of success if you've only seen it on a picture or whatever. Failure means death. So you really don't want to ever do that. You really don't want to ever do that. If you've seen it but not studied it, there's a 20% chance of error. In case of an error, it's a 50% chance that you arrive low, or high, resulting in a deadly fall. So pretty fun stuff. Time stop. I've never actually gotten to see this used because, I don't do that level of high level play. So I'm going to have to run a Swords and Wizardry campaign and go that high level, I think. I really feel like my next D&D game is going to be a D&D, actually, but I kind of want to do Swords and Wizardry too, so I'm not sure. Anyway, time stop, 1d4 plus 1 rounds. Caster stops the time of passage in a radius of about 15 feet around himself. Any creatures within this area are suspended in time, unable to act. The caster is not stopped in time while in the area or beyond. Plenty of time to slit a few throats. That's all I got to say about that. Especially since a round is a minute. Imagine how many throats you can slit in a minute. I'm going to get flagged. Transmute metal to wood. Okay, it's permanent. You can turn metal into wood. Each discrete piece of metal is allowed a saving throw. Coins may be checked in batches rather than rolling hundreds of saving throws. Oh man, for real? The effect cannot be dispelled, although a reverse version of the spell could be used to undo the transmutation. That is such a Chad Druid thing. It's like, all right, I'm going to go to their bank and I'm going to turn everything to wood. Because screw them. You can turn all them gold pieces, just all of it. Just all of it. Transmute rock to mud. Somebody was talking about that earlier. It lasts for 3 to 6 days unless reversed. Transmutes rock, any other form of earth, including sand, into mud. An area of roughly 300 by 300 feet becomes a deep mire, reducing movement to 10% of normal. That's significant. I love this land altering stuff because if you add that with like, add that to like permanency spell or something like that, you could set up like a bitchin' bog or something, that's protecting your area. And if people want to get in, they either have to fly in or they have to go through a very specific passage that is very well guarded. Yes. Domain play. I want it. Transport via plants. 6th level druid. Caster may enter any normal plant path. So it's kind of like past plant, sounds like. Both plants must be alive. but the destruction of an occupied plant slays the caster and ejects the body from the plant. Caster becomes aware of all plants within 3,000 feet. Spell will not fail if the attempted travel is made within this radius. However, if the caster attempts to travel beyond this radius in the substance of a plant the caster has never before seen, meaning that that specific plant, not just the species, there's a 20% chance of error during travel. Exact error of the nature depends on circumstances, but is likely to be off by a margin of at least 26 miles. So, I mean, you can... I already said, you got your druid running away, just running off. People are chasing him, and they're like, don't let him near that tree. Apparently, you can't let him near a plant either. What is a normal plant anyway? I mean, technically a blade of grass is a plant, right? Just a very small one. Is there any kind of limit? I mean, you have to be able to enter it. So I would assume that maybe it needs to be big enough for you to enter. Those are some big ass plants. I mean, I'm a big dude. I'm trying to think of like plants that could, other than trees, that could compare. Okay, Wall of Fire. Concentration. So this is one of the first ones I've seen in a while that says concentration on it. So creatures that with 3 or fewer hit dice cannot pass through it. You just can't do it. No creature can see through it to the other side. Passing through it inflicts 1d6 hit points of damage. With no saving throw, an undead creature sustains twice the normal damage. Caster may choose to create a straight wall 60 feet long and 20 feet high, or a circular wall with a 15-foot radius, also 20 feet high. It's a cool spell. Do not pass go. Oh, we're in the W's. Almost done, folks. Okay. Husha Shebeka says, to survive teleport, precast flying yourself and aim high. There you go. That's good. That's good, man. You got it. Liches, Arman says, Liches should always use time stop. Probably, yeah. That's a good point. It's a high-level spell. Liches are high-level dudes. And just imagine the kind of damage they can do. Euron says, stone to flesh used to make stone soup for a high-level magician starving to death. Husha Shebega, Mr. Arman says, have Featherfall ready. Yeah, Featherfall also. Eric Solo Adventure says, could turn armor to wood. Would that reduce their AC? Yes. In my personal opinion, yes. I would say it would reduce their... I was going to say it would reduce their mobility as well. But I'm not so certain about that. I don't know. Like, what is there research on wood and armor? I know that had to have been a thing at some point, I imagine. Anyway, Wall of Ice, 60 feet, 4th level magic user spell. Concentration, again. So they can make a 60-foot long wall. It is 20 feet high, or a circular wall with a 15-foot radius, also 20 feet high. Creatures with 3 or 4, it's basically the same spell, but it's cold, and people can smash through it instead of walking through it, but they take damage in the process. Creatures with fire-based metabolisms take 2d6 instead of the normal 1d6. Fire spells and the magical effects are negated in the vicinity of the wall, which is pretty neat. That is a pretty neat little thing you got there. Wall of Iron. So you can create an iron wall. It's, Wall of Stone. You can create a stone wall. That one's permanent until dispelled. So you could just make walls of stone every day until you've got your whole perimeter set up, and then you can start building some watchtowers and things like that, and fortifications, and save yourself a little bit of money. But you gotta have a magic user of appropriate level. Warp Wood, Druid, 2nd level spell. So permanent, it warps, bends, and twists wood. Volume of about one 2-inch by 4-inch by 5-foot plank can be affected per every 2 levels of the caster. Volume of a spear or several arrows. However, keep in mind that springing a door open or causing a leak in a ship's planking does not actually require much of the constituent wood to be warped. That is a very interesting point. You don't got to fudge up the whole thing. So it's basically saying, this is pretty useful, guys. It's pretty useful. It could be, several arrows, doesn't really say how many, but if you were to use that against somebody who is an archer, for instance, yes, because you do have 60 feet. But I mean, if you're within 60 feet, you could probably just go up there and slap him in the face anyway. Water breathing. It's a water breathing spell. It lasts for 2 hours, but it's only on one person. It's the recipient. Weather summoning, druid 6th level spell, centered on caster. 1 hour per level. Within 30 minutes, whatever weather the druid desires forms in the surrounding 5-mile radius. It is not under the caster's control in the sense that it will not specifically target any individuals or affect one place within the radius more than any other place. This spell is not by any means the only way by which groups of druids might exercise control over weather conditions, using holy places or acting together in mystic rituals. It is simply the manner by which a lone but powerful druid can summon forth weather conditions using no ritual beyond mere spellcasting. So this, together with a magic user that maybe has some ritual they need to do to bring a golem to life, like, I don't know, I guess you could always just use a lightning bolt. To do the old Frankenstein lightning bolt spell. You could always do that. But whatever. It's cooler if you actually summon the weather and it comes from the heavens. Web. Oh, web. The webs we weave. 2nd level magic user spell. 30 feet range. 8-hour duration. 10 by 10 by 20 feet area of sticky webs that are difficult to get through. It takes 10 minutes. If a torch and sword are used to get to break through it. And creatures larger than a horse can break through in 2 turns, 20 minutes. Humans alone take more time to break through, perhaps 3 or 4 turns or longer at the referee's discretion. So what you do is you get them in the web, you pour just a bunch of oil on them, and you set them on fire. Because I mean, I guess you might be able to get your sword in there and stab them, or you might just run away. They're stuck there for a while. Or you might just try and shoot them with arrows. Shooting through a web, maybe they're extra hard to hit. And your arrows might get stuck in the web. I don't know. Wizard Eye, 4th level magic user, 240 feet, 1 hour. Conjure up an invisible magical eye that can move a maximum of 240 feet from its creator, floats along the directed path by the caster at 120 feet per turn. That's pretty fast. But it doesn't say anything about whether you can see through it or not. It's just there's an eye. Woo! But of course you can see through it. That's the whole point. I just think it's funny that they didn't mention that. Wizard Lock. Close range, 2nd level magic user spell, permanent until dispelled. Will hold a portal, like as with hold portal spell. Wizard Lock holds the door closed, but is permanent until dispelled. Creatures with magic resistance can shatter the spell without effort. Any magic user at least 3 levels higher than the caster can open the portal, and a knock spell will open it as well. So that's interesting that you can, if you're just a higher level, significantly higher level magic user, just open the door anyway. What? You don't even have to do anything. Just I can open the door. Wish, 9th level magic user spell, unlimited range. Spell is not all powerful. It grants wishes of limited scope, although more powerful than a limited wish. So limited wish is really extra limited wish. Wish is limited wish, basically. Referee discretion will rule what sort of wishes are within the spell's power. One possible unofficial guideline might be that a wish can grant effects that would be similar in power to an 8th level spell or lower, with permanent effects in many cases. After casting a wish spell, the magic user is mentally drained and unable to cast spells for a period of 1d4 days. So it's not nothing. Windwalk, 7th level cleric spell. touch range 1 day or until dispelled. The caster and one other person in contact with him become incorporeal and mist-like, able to travel through walls and other obstacles. The cleric can bring this companion along and travel at 48 feet per minute indoors or in a subterranean settings and much faster outdoors. It's pretty cool. Word of Recall. Range is indefinite. Duration immediate. 6th level cleric spell. They can teleport without error back to a prepared sanctuary. But they can't take people with them. And that's it. That is the Swords and Wizardry Magic and Spells book. Oh my gosh. We finally did it. We finally did it. Husha Shebeka says it would probably raise AC, descending AC on all. There you go. I was me and my new school brain, I still had to, whenever I say, you could say improves armor class, because improve is going to work both ways, isn't it? So what's going on with y'all? I got a video on death and dying that's going to be going up tomorrow. Actually, yeah, I'll have that up tomorrow. I am going to do a stream on Dragon Age RPG because it turns out that whenever I proposed a 5e in-person game, and then my friends found out about it, they're like, why don't we just do Dragon Age RPG? And I was like, yes, let's do that. Let's do that instead of fifth edition, please. Actually, I didn't get a whole lot of attention, as far as not nearly as much as I thought. I think I'll do a video on that right now. So if you see me wearing the same shirt in a lot of videos, it's because I'm making a lot of shirts that look exactly the same. No, it's because I'm making a lot of videos on the same day because I'm off today, and I'm uploading them periodically because algorithm does not like for you to take breaks, even if you upload in batches. So there you go, fools. Chat does not seem to be buzzing. I guess that is the end of this video. Hope you enjoyed it. And go and buy Swords and Wizardry. Buy the complete version. Buy the box set. It's awesome stuff. It's great. You won't regret it. You might, actually. I can't promise that. That's it for this video. Take it easy.